Hey guys, tonight we are stepping back into a world where the night is truly dark, lit only by the silver glow of a crescent moon and the flickering embers of a dying cooking fire. You are standing on the banks of the Nile, the water moving with a heavy, rhythmic pulse that sounds like the breath of the earth itself. The air is thick with the scent of river mud, sweet jasmine, and the dry, dusty heat that never quite leaves the stones of Egypt, even after the sun has vanished behind the great pyramids. You are exhausted, your limbs feel like lead, and yet your mind is spinning like a potter's wheel, refusing to settle into the quiet embrace of sleep. You probably believe that people in the ancient world lived simple, stress-free lives and simply closed their eyes to fall into a deep, dreamless slumber the moment the sun went down. In reality, the ancients struggled with the same restless tossing and turning that you do, though their solutions were far more eccentric than a warm glass of milk or a white noise machine. Before you get too comfortable and possibly fall asleep halfway through, tap like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this odd mix of boredom and history. It keeps the channel alive and the stories just sleepy enough to help you drift off again next time. If you are listening from a rainy city or a quiet house in the countryside, feel free to share your location and the local time in the comments. It is always lovely to know where in the world our sleepy community is gathered tonight. Now, dim the lights, let the world outside grow quiet, and turn on a fan if you like that soft, steady hum in the background. Let your shoulders loosen and your breathing slow. This is your time to drift. No rush, no deadlines, no noise. Just you, a little warmth in the air, and the faint whisper of history waiting to unfold. So, settle in, and let's ease gently into tonight's journey together. The sand beneath your feet is still warm, a lingering gift from the fierce sun that ruled the day. You walk slowly along the edge of the water, watching the tall papyrus reeds sway in the midnight breeze. They make a soft, dry sound, like 1,000 tiny fans brushing against silk. You are looking for a remedy, something to stop the buzzing in your head and the stiffness in your neck. In this era, the line between medicine and magic is as thin as a thread of linen. You pass by the dark shapes of mud, brick houses where families are huddled together on mats made of woven straw. You might think a reed mat sounds uncomfortable, but when you have spent 12 hours hauling limestone blocks under 100-degree sun, even a flat rock starts to look like a pillow from a luxury hotel. You find yourself approaching the house of a local healer, a man who knows the secrets of the plants and the creatures that share this river valley. The doorway is narrow, and the interior smells of dried herbs, honey, and something slightly metallic. There are no light switches here, only the dim, amber glow of a small oil lamp sitting on a wooden stool. The flame dances, casting long, jumping shadows against the walls which are covered in painted symbols. You see images of eyes, serpents, and birds, all meant to guard the sleeper from the demons of the night. It is a comforting thought, the idea that a few splashes of paint could keep your worries at bay, though your modern brain likely wishes for a more chemical solution. The healer moves slowly, his shadow stretching across the floor like a giant. He does not speak, for the night is a time for silence, but he reaches into a ceramic jar and produces a small, limp shape. This is the cure you have heard whispered about in the marketplace. It is a mouse, small and gray, recently caught in the grain stores. In ancient Egypt, the mouse was not just a pest. It was a creature of the earth, a tiny bundle of life that was believed to possess a peculiar kind of power, to cure the restlessness that plagues you, or perhaps to help a child who cannot stop crying in the dark. The prescription is simple and startling. The mouse is to be eaten raw, or sometimes sliced and pressed against the skin. You watch as the healer prepares the tiny creature. There is no fire to cook it, for the heat of the animal is believed to be its medicine. You think about your own kitchen, the refrigerator filled with organized snacks, and the microwave that hums with efficiency. Here, the raw mouse is the pinnacle of nocturnal pharmacology. It is a strange thought, the idea that such a small thing could be the key to the gates of sleep. You might find your appetite disappearing at the very idea, which is perhaps one way to forget about your insomnia. After all, it is hard to worry about your busy schedule tomorrow when you are contemplating a rodent-based midnight snack. Historians still argue whether these treatments were actually consumed by the patient or merely held against the body as a spiritual charm to ward off the spirits of unrest. Either way, the belief in the mouse's power was widespread, appearing in medical texts that date back thousands of years. You imagine the sensation of the cold, damp skin of the mouse against your forehead, a primitive cooling pad designed to draw the fever of thought out of your brain. The Egyptians were pioneers in documenting medical treatments on papyrus, creating the world's first physical databases of how to fix a broken human. They used honey to seal wounds and willow bark, which we now know contains the precursors to aspirin, to dull the sharp edges of pain. As you leave the healer's house, you walk back toward the river. The moon is higher now, turning the Nile into a ribbon of liquid mercury. You find a quiet spot among the palms and sit down, leaning your back against the rough bark of a tree. The world feels very old and very still. You think about the millions of people who have sat on these same banks over the millennia, all of them looking up at the same stars and wondering why their minds will not turn off. The sky is so clear here that the stars look like spilled salt on a black tablecloth. There is no light pollution, no glowing screens, and no distant roar of traffic. There is only the wind and the occasional splash of a fish jumping in the water. Egyptian life was governed by the rising and setting of the sun, a natural rhythm that we have largely lost in our world of LED bulbs and shifting work shifts. When the sun set, the world simply stopped. You couldn't just turn on a lamp and finish a report or watch a movie. You were forced into the darkness, and if sleep did not come, you were left alone with your thoughts and the rustle of the wind in the palms. This forced stillness is something you are trying to find tonight. You let your breath match the slow, steady movement of the river, in through your nose, feeling the cool air, and out through your mouth, releasing the tension in your jaw. The ancient Egyptians believed that sleep was a journey, a brief visit to the land of the dead, where the soul could communicate with the gods. If you couldn't sleep, it meant you were stuck between worlds, unable to move forward. The mouse, a creature that lived in the dark holes of the earth, was seen as a guide, a tiny scout that could help your spirit find its way back to the path of rest. It is a poetic way to look at a pest. If your modern house mouse knew, It was once considered a spiritual navigator. It might walk with a bit more dignity across your kitchen floor. You close your eyes and imagine the heat of the Egyptian night, slowly cooling as the hours crawl toward dawn. The desert air loses its bite, becoming soft and velvet, like against your skin. You feel the weight of your eyelids, heavy like the stones of the temples. You are not a builder of pyramids or a scribe of the pharaoh tonight. You are just a person seeking the simple mercy of a few hours of quiet. The thoughts of raw mice and ancient scrolls begin to blur at the edges, turning into vague shapes and colors. You think about the willow bark and the honey, the cooling river and the rustling reeds. In this ancient landscape, time doesn't feel like a straight line. It feels like a circle, repeating every day with the sun and every night with the moon. Your insomnia is just a small part of that circle, a brief moment of friction before the wheel turns again. You find yourself drifting, the hard ground beneath you feeling softer, the air feeling thinner and more peaceful. The gentle sarcasm of the universe seems to fade away, replaced by a deep, ancient calm. You are safe here, protected by the distance of centuries and the quiet of the desert. The healer's lamp has likely gone out by now, the small wick drowning in the last drops of oil. The village is silent, save for the occasional bark of a distant dog or the lowing of a cow in a nearby pen. These are the sounds of a world at rest. You realize that the search for sleep is a universal human experience, a bridge that connects you to the person who stood on this sand 3,000 years ago. You both wanted the same thing, to let go of the day and find peace in the dark. As you sit there, the Nile continues its long, slow journey toward the sea. It never rushes, and it never stops. It just flows. You try to make your thoughts like the river. Do not try to stop them, just let them flow past you. If a worry about tomorrow pops up, let it float away like a piece of driftwood. If a memory of the day bothers you, let it sink like a stone into the deep, dark water. You are left with nothing but the rhythm of your own breathing and the soft, cool air of the Egyptian night. The quirky truth is that while we might laugh at the idea of a mouse cure, the Egyptians were surprisingly advanced. They knew that the body and the mind were connected, and that sometimes a strange ritual or a specific physical sensation was enough to break the cycle of anxiety. They were the first to realize that a restless night was not just a physical problem, but a puzzle for the soul to solve. You are solving your own puzzle now, bit by bit, as you relax your muscles and let your head sink back. The stars above you seem to be pulsing, a slow heartbeat of light in the vastness of the space. You feel very small, but in a way that is comforting. Your problems are small, too, when compared to the age of the stones and the depth of the river. You are just a guest in this night, and the night is a generous host. It offers you darkness, it offers you silence, and it offers you the chance to start over when the sun eventually returns. But for now, the sun is a long way off, hidden on the other side of the world. You think about the 5-star, read mat again. It really is an exercise in perspective. To a weary traveler in the year 1500 BCE, that mat was a sanctuary. To you, your mattress is likely a miracle of engineering, yet you still find reasons to be restless. Perhaps the secret isn't in the softness of the bed, but in the quietness of the heart. The Egyptians understood that nature had its own pace, and they tried to live within it. They didn't have coffee to jumpstart their mornings, so they relied on the natural energy of the sunrise. Their lives were physically demanding, which usually helped with sleep, but even they had their nights of staring at the ceiling, or the thatched roof, as it were. Historians often find small amulets shaped like mice in the tombs of the wealthy and the poor alike. This suggests that the mouse remedy was something people wanted to take with them into the afterlife, just in case they couldn't sleep there either. It is a bit funny to think of an Egyptian mummy needing a tiny stone mouse to get some rest in eternity. It just goes to show that some things never change. We all just want a good night's sleep, whether we are in a modern bedroom or a limestone sarcophagus. The air is growing even cooler now, the first hint of the pre-dawn chill. You pull your linen cloak tighter around your shoulders. The texture is rough but familiar. The smell of the river is stronger now, a scent of life and ancient mystery. You feel a deep sense of connection to the earth beneath you. You are part of the history of this place, a quiet witness to the passage of time. The dreams of the pharaohs are long gone, but the quiet of the night remains. You find yourself yawning, a deep, satisfying stretch that reaches all the way to your toes. The tension that was held in your shoulders has finally dissolved, leaving you feeling light and loose. The story of the raw mouse and the moonlit Nile is becoming a hazy memory, a bedtime tale told by a flickering fire. You are ready to move on from the desert, to travel forward in time to other places and other nights, but you will carry this stillness with you. The path ahead is dark, but it is not frightening. It is a path of soft shadows and gentle whispers. You walk away from the river, your footsteps making no sound on the soft sand. The pyramids are silhouettes against the starry sky, grand and silent. They have watched over thousands of nights like this, and they will watch over thousands more. They are the ultimate symbols of endurance and peace. You take one last look at the moon before you let your eyes close for a moment longer than usual. Everything is in its place. The river is flowing, the stars are shining, and the world is asleep. You are part of that sleep now, a quiet ripple in the great ocean of the night. There is no need to hurry, no need to think. Just let the darkness hold you, soft and warm like the Egyptian sand. You are drifting now, moving away from the ancient world and into the soft, blurred edges of a dream. The raw mouse is gone, the healer has finished his work, and the Nile is a distant hum in the background of your mind. You are falling, not into a hole, but into a cloud of ancient dust and silver moonlight. It is the most natural thing in the world. To sleep is to return to the beginning, to find the quiet center of everything. You are almost there. The rhythm of the water is the rhythm of your heart. Slow, steady, deep. The desert is a memory. The stars are a promise. The night is your friend. The silver moonlight of the Nile begins to fade, and the air around you grows sharp and heavy, with the scent of damp stone and old beeswax. You are no longer standing on the warm sands of Egypt. Instead, you feel the rough, cool surface of a granite floor beneath your bare feet. You are in the heart of a medieval monastery, somewhere in the rolling hills of Europe, hundreds of years after the time of the pharaohs. The warmth of the desert has been replaced by a deep, biting cold that seems to seep out of the very walls. You are wearing a long robe of thick, brown wool. It is heavy and a bit scratchy against your skin, a constant reminder of the humble life you have chosen, or perhaps just the life you are visiting tonight. The silence here is different from the silence of the river. It is a heavy, sacred quiet that feels as though it has been building up for centuries within these arched hallways. You are lying on a narrow wooden bed in a small stone cell. Your pillow is a simple sack stuffed with straw, which rustles every time you move your head. It is not exactly the height of luxury, but in the Middle Ages, having a bed of your own was a significant privilege. Most people were lucky to have a pile of leaves in a corner. You are staring at the ceiling, watching the way the moonlight casts long, thin fingers across the stones. You cannot sleep. Your mind is full of the chants you heard earlier in the day, the rhythmic Latin words looping through your brain like a song you cannot turn off. You probably believe that people in the Middle Ages slept from sunset to sunrise in one long, peaceful block because they didn't have smartphones to distract them. In truth, your ancestors likely practiced something called biphasic sleep. They would fall asleep at dusk, wake up for an hour or two in the middle of the night to think, pray, or chat, and then fall back into a second sleep until dawn. The heavy, bronze bell in the high tower begins to ring, calling the brothers to the midnight service known as matins. The sound is not sharp or sudden. It is a deep, vibrating hum that you feel in your chest more than you hear in your ears. It is the heartbeat of the monastery, a signal that the world of the spirit never rests, even when the body is begging for a break. You sit up slowly, feeling the weight of the wool robe pull at your shoulders. Your joints feel stiff, and the air in the cell is so cold that you can see your own breath turning into a faint mist in the moonlight. You find your leather sandals on the floor and slide your feet into them. The leather is cold and stiff, but it provides a small barrier between you and the freezing stone. As you walk out of your cell and into the long corridor, you see other shadowy figures moving toward the chapel. No one speaks. There is a rule of silence during the night hours, a practice meant to keep the mind focused on the divine. The only sounds are the soft scraping of sandals on stone and the distant, muffled cough of a brother at the end of the hall. You pass by a small window where the frost has formed intricate patterns like frozen lace. You think about the modern world where a thermostat is just a few inches away and a warm blanket is a given. Here, the only way to stay warm is to keep moving and to hope that the thick walls hold onto a little of the day's sunlight. Historians still argue whether this middle of the night-waking period was a natural biological rhythm or a cultural habit forced upon people by the lack of artificial light. Some believe that humans are naturally designed to sleep in two parts, and that our modern habit of sleeping 8 hours straight is actually a very recent and somewhat stressful invention. In the monastery, this midnight wakefulness is put to use. It is a time for reflection, for deep thought, and for facing the darkness within oneself. But for you, it is just another hour of wishing you were unconscious. Your eyes feel gritty, and your brain feels like it is wrapped in a thick layer of damp wool. You reach the chapel, where a few dozen candles are flickering in tall iron stands. The smell of incense is everywhere, a sweet, smoky aroma of frankincense and myrrh that fills your lungs and makes your head feel a bit light. The monks begin to chant, their voices blending into a single, low vibration that bounces off the high, vaulted ceiling. It is a beautiful sound, but it is also incredibly hypnotic. You find yourself swaying slightly as you stand in your wooden stall. Your chin drops toward your chest, and for a second, the world disappears, only to return with a sharp jerk as you realize you almost fell over. You are caught in the strange limbo between the waking world and the world of dreams. You remember an old remedy you saw in a dusty manuscript in the scriptorium earlier that day. It was a recipe for a nocturnal tonic to help those who suffered from a heavy head and a restless heart. Just like the ancient Egyptians, the medieval healers had a strange fascination with the mouse. In this part of the world, a raw mouse was sometimes recommended as a cure for bedwetting or for general weakness of the spirit. There was even a belief that wearing a dried mouse in a silk bag around your neck could prevent the nightmare, which people believed was an actual demon that sat on your chest while you slept. You imagine yourself standing there in the holy chapel, a tiny rodent dangling from your neck, and you can't help but feel a small, sleepy spark of amusement. It seems that throughout history, humans have been willing to try almost anything to get a little bit of peace at night. The monks were the original influencers of the medieval world, only instead of posting photos of their avocado toast, they were copying ancient texts and perfecting the art of the perfect midnight routine. They lived a life of extreme discipline, but they were also masters of finding comfort in small things. A warm piece of bread, a cup of weak ale, or the simple warmth of a shared prayer were the highlights of their existence. You think about your own life and the millions of choices you have to make every day. Here, there is no choice. The bell rings, and you wake up. The chant begins, and you sing. There is a strange kind of freedom in that lack of options. It takes the pressure off your brain, allowing you to simply exist in the moment. The service lasts for an hour, a long stretch of standing and sitting and kneeling in the dim light. By the time it is over, the candles have burned down low, their flames drowning in pools of melted wax. The brothers begin to file back to their cells, their shadows dancing on the walls like ghosts. You follow them, your feet feeling heavier with every step. The cold doesn't seem to bother you as much now. You are too tired to care about the temperature. You just want to crawl back onto your straw mattress and find that second sleep everyone talks about. A mainstream historical fact that often surprises people is that medieval monasteries were actually the centers of medical knowledge for their time. While the raw mouse cure might sound ridiculous to us, the monks were also studying herbs like lavender, valerian, and chamomile. They had lush gardens filled with plants that we still use today to help with sleep and anxiety. They were the bridge between the ancient magic of the past and the scientific medicine of the future. They understood that the body needed help to relax, even if their methods were sometimes a bit hairy and squeaky. You return to your cell and lie down. The straw rustles, settling beneath your weight. You pull the heavy wool blanket up to your chin. It is scratchy, yes, but it is also surprisingly warm once your body heat gets trapped inside. You close your eyes and try to clear your mind of the Latin chants and the smell of incense. You think about the garden outside the walls, where the owls are likely hunting for the very mice that the healers are so fond of. The cycle of the night continues, whether you are awake to witness it or not. A quirky tidbit from the annals of medieval history is the story of the sleepy monk, a common character in old stories who was always falling asleep during the long midnight prayers. To combat this, some monasteries had a designated brother whose job it was to walk around with a small lantern and poke anyone who looked like they were nodding off. Imagine having a professional poker assigned to your bedroom to make sure you stayed awake for your 2 a.m. thoughts. It gives a whole new meaning to the idea of a wake-up call. You can almost feel the gentle tap on your shoulder, reminding you to stay present in the dark. But tonight, there is no poker. You are allowed to drift. You think about the concept of the nightmare again. In the 12th century, people didn't think of bad dreams as something generated by their own brains. They thought of them as external forces, tiny creatures or spirits that crept into the room. This made the bedroom a bit of a battleground. You had to protect yourself with prayers, symbols, and sometimes a very unfortunate mouse. It is a bit like the way we use blue light filters and lavender sprays today. We are all just trying to create a fortress of safety around our sleep. The monastery is silent once more. The wind whispers through the stone arches, making a sound like a long, slow sigh. You find yourself breathing in time with the building. The stones have been here for 100 years, and they will be here for 100 more. They aren't worried about tomorrow's chores or yesterday's mistakes. They just are. You try to be like the stone. Let the worries of the world wash over you without sticking. You are just a visitor in this time, a traveler in the history of sleep. You think about the raw mouse. One last time. If you were truly desperate, would you try it? If you hadn't slept in a week, and someone offered you a rodent-based solution, would you hesitate? It's a funny thought to have as you are drifting off. The things we do for a moment of quiet are often stranger than the things we do for money or fame. Sleep is the ultimate currency, the one thing everyone needs but no one can truly buy. You are rich tonight, because the heaviness in your eyelids is finally winning the battle against the thoughts in your head. The straw beneath you feels softer now, as if it has decided to stop being scratchy and start being supportive. The cold air in the room feels refreshing rather than freezing, a clean, sharp contrast to the warmth of your blanket. You feel a sense of peace that you haven't felt in a long time. The structure of the monastic life, with its bells and its prayers and its total silence, has a way of smoothing out the jagged edges of the day. You don't have to be anyone important here. You are just a shadow among shadows, a quiet part of a very old story. You imagine the sun beginning its long journey up from the other side of the world. It is still hours away, but you can feel the potential of it. For now, though, the darkness is your home. You let yourself sink deeper into the mattress. The images of the chapel and the monks and the flickering candles begin to blur together, turning into a soft, gray haze. You are no longer in the 12th century, and you are no longer in the modern world. You are in the space between, where time doesn't matter, and the only thing that exists is the rhythm of your own heart. The second sleep is coming for you now. It is a deep, heavy kind of rest, the kind that feels like you are being wrapped in layers of silk and shadow. You are safe. You are warm. You are tired. The story of the monastery and the midnight bell is fading away, replaced by the quiet hum of your own breathing. You think about the mouse in its silk bag, the frozen lace on the window, and the long, slow vibration of the bronze bell. They are all just part of the dream now. In the Middle Ages, they believed that during sleep, the soul left the body and wandered through the world, seeing things that the eyes could not. You let your soul wander. It travels over the stone walls, over the frozen fields, and into the dark woods where the world is still wild and ancient. You are free to go anywhere, because your body is tucked away in its little stone cell, protected by the silence and the cold. There is no rush to come back. The sun will wait for you. The world will wait for you. Historians still argue whether the monks were actually more rested than we are today. They worked harder physically, but they also had more interruptions to their sleep. It is a trade-off that we are still trying to figure out in our own lives. Do we want more sleep, or do we want more time? Tonight you choose sleep. You choose the quiet of the monastery and the warmth of the wool. You choose to let the world go on without you for a while. The last candle in your mind has flickered out. There is only the soft, velvet darkness and the memory of the bells. You are drifting, floating, falling into the deep, quiet well of the night. The raw mouse cure is a distant joke, a curious footnote in the book of your journey. You don't need it. You have found the secret on your own. It is the secret of the stone and the secret of the wool. It is the secret of letting go. As you move toward the edge of consciousness, you feel a gentle sense of gratitude for the people who came before you. They sat in the same darkness, felt the same cold, and looked for the same peace. You are not alone in your restlessness. You are part of a long, long line of dreamers. And tonight, you are finally joining them. The monastery is asleep. The world is asleep. And soon you will be too. The silence is complete. The peace is total. Sleep well, traveler. The night is yours. You might wonder if the monks ever had dreams about the mice they used for medicine. Perhaps in their dreams, the mice grew large and offered them advice on how to pray better or where to find the best cheese. It's a silly thought, the kind of thought that only comes when you are right on the edge of falling off into a dream. The humor of it is like a soft, warm light in the back of your brain. Even in the middle of a cold, serious monastery, there was room for a little bit of weirdness. The heavy wool of your robe feels like a hug from a very large, very friendly bear. It's a bit much, but it's exactly what you need. You let your muscles go limp, starting with your toes and moving all the way up to your forehead. You are a puddle of relaxation on a bed of straw. The scratchiness is gone. The cold is gone. The Latin is gone. There is only the dark. And the dark is a beautiful thing. It is the blanket that covers the whole world, making everything equal and everything quiet. You are tucked in. The world is tucked in. And the story is almost over for this chapter. The heavy, scratchy wool of the monastery begins to soften, turning into the smooth, cool touch of a linen shirt under a doublet of dark green velvet. You are no longer in the silent stone halls of a religious retreat. The air around you has changed. It is now thick with the scent of wood smoke, roasting meat, and the pungent, vinegary tang of a city that never quite cleans its gutters. You are standing in the middle of a narrow, winding street in a Renaissance city, perhaps London or Florence, where the timber-framed houses lean toward each other, as if they are sharing scandalous secrets across the cobblestones. The night is alive in a way it wasn't in the desert or the monastery. You hear the distant, rhythmic call of a night watchman and the soft, repetitive splash of a bucket being emptied into a nearby canal. It is a world of discovery, art, and a very peculiar approach to science that still holds one foot firmly in the world of the strange and the furry. You are walking toward a shop with a swinging wooden sign that depicts a golden pestle and mortar. This is the apothecary, the destination for anyone whose brain is too loud for their body to rest. Your insomnia has followed you through the centuries, a stubborn companion that seems to enjoy the flickering torchlight of the 16th century just as much as the Egyptian moon. You push open the heavy oak door, and the sound of a small bell ringing is muffled by the heavy drapes hanging inside. The shop is a jungle of glass jars, ceramic pots, and bundles of dried plants hanging from the low, dark rafters. The light comes from a few thick tallow candles that smell faintly of animal fat, casting a warm, buttery glow over the chaos of the shelves. The apothecary himself is a man of many layers, both in his clothing and his knowledge. He doesn't offer you a raw mouse on a plate, as that would be considered far too primitive for a man of the modern Renaissance. Instead, he reaches for a jar labeled with elegant, looping calligraphy. Inside are dried mouse tails, cured in a mixture of salt and honey. He explains, not through dialogue, but through the slow, deliberate way he handles the ingredients, that the essence of the rodent must now be refined. You watch as he places 3 of these tails into a small iron pot, adding crushed poppy heads, a pinch of dried valerian root, and a splash of sweet wine. This is the Renaissance upgrade to your bedtime routine, a mouse infusion tea, designed to balance your humors and soothe the animal spirits that are racing through your veins. You might think that your modern life is complicated, but a Renaissance citizen had to worry about their 4 humors: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm, staying in perfect harmony. If you couldn't sleep, it was clearly because you were too choleric, or perhaps your melancholy was acting up. A mainstream historical fact of this era is that the apothecary was the precursor to the modern pharmacist, acting as a chemist, a doctor, and sometimes a bit of a magician. They were the ones who began to standardize the use of plants, though they still felt the need to include things like crushed pearls or unicorn horn for their wealthier, more gullible clients. If you feel like your current health insurance is expensive, imagine paying half a year's wages for a powder made from a narwhal tusk, just to help you stop worrying about the neighbors. As the infusion simmers over a small charcoal brazier, the smell begins to fill the room. It is a strange, earthy scent, like a forest floor after a heavy rain, mixed with the medicinal sharp hit of the valerian. You remember that crocodile dung sunscreen from your time in Egypt and realize that, in comparison, a bit of mouse tail tea is actually a step up in the world of luxury. At least this remedy stays in a cup rather than being smeared on your face. You find a small wooden stool and sit down, watching the steam rise in thin, swirling ribbons. The apothecary moves about the room, his long sleeves brushing against jars of dragon blood and mummy powder, which was actually just ground up ancient residents of the Nile Valley, though people at the time believed it was a powerful tonic. It is a bit ironic that the very people you visited in the first section of this journey ended up being sold in jars 1,000 years later to help with stomach aches. Historians still argue whether the elaborate, Syriac recipes of this time, universal panaceas that often contained over 60 different ingredients, actually work because of their trace amounts of opium, or if the sheer complexity of the mixture acted as a powerful placebo for the stressed out mind. When you are drinking something that contains viper's flesh, gold leaf, and rare spices, you probably want to believe it will work, if only to justify the price. Your mouse tail tea is a humbler version of this, a remedy for the common person who just wants to close their eyes and forget about the rising cost of grain or the latest royal scandal. You take the cup from the apothecary, the ceramic warm against your palms. The liquid is a dark, murky amber. You take a slow sip, and the taste is surprisingly sweet from the honey, followed by a bitter, woody aftertaste that lingers on your tongue. It feels warm in your throat, a liquid heat that starts to spread through your chest and down into your tired limbs. You feel like a clock that has been wound too tight and is finally being allowed to unwind, one slow tick at a time. The frantic energy of the city outside seems to fade into the background, replaced by the soft, steady crackle of the charcoal in the brazier. A quirky tidbit that would make even a modern doctor raise an eyebrow is the powder of sympathy. This was a belief that you could cure a wound, not by treating the person, but by applying a special powder to the weapon that caused the injury. If you had insomnia, some healers suggested treating your pillow with herbal washes while you weren't even in the room, believing the sympathy between the fabric and your head would draw out the restlessness. It's the 16th century equivalent of trying to fix your computer by giving a carrot to your mouse. The electronic one, that is. It sounds ridiculous, but when you are desperate for rest, the idea that your pillow could do the heavy lifting for you is quite an appealing thought. You leave the apothecary shop, the cup empty and your head feeling pleasantly heavy. The night air is cooler now, and a light mist has begun to roll in from the river, wrapping the buildings in a soft, grey blanket. You walk back toward your lodgings, your boots making a dull, rhythmic thud on the cobblestones. You pass a large stone fountain where the water flows with a constant, soothing gurgle. You stop for a moment, watching the way the torchlight reflects in the moving water. It looks like liquid gold, shifting and changing, never staying still. You realize that your thoughts are finally doing the same, moving from one thing to another without getting stuck on any particular worry. The Renaissance was a time of great noise. The noise of new ideas, the noise of printing presses, and the noise of a growing middle class. People were suddenly very aware of their own individuality, which is a great recipe for staying awake at night. When you start thinking about your place in the universe, it's hard to just turn off the lights and go to sleep. But here, in the quiet of the misty street, the universe feels very small and very kind. You are just a person walking home in the dark, carrying the warmth of a strange tea inside you. You reach your room, which is tucked away at the top of a narrow flight of stairs. The wood creaks under your weight, a friendly, familiar sound that tells you that you are home. You have a proper bed here, with a feather mattress that feels like a giant, soft cloud compared to the straw of the monastery or the sand of the Nile. You sink into it. the feathers rising up around you to cradle your weight. The smell of the mouse tail tea is still faintly on your breath, a reminder of the apothecary's strange expertise. You pull the heavy velvet curtains around the bed, creating a little room within a room, a dark sanctuary where the world cannot reach you. You think about the science of your day. You have been told that your brain is cooled by phlegm during the night, which allows your soul to rest. It is a lovely image. The idea of a gentle, cooling wave washing over your mind, putting out the fires of the day's ambitions. You let that wave wash over you now. You feel it starting at the top of your head, smoothing out the lines in your forehead, and moving down to your jaw, which finally unhinges from its tight clench. Your shoulders sink deeper into the feathers. Your hands, which have been busy all day, finally go still, resting loosely at your sides. Historians often note that during the Renaissance, the transition from first sleep to second sleep was often a time for creative work. Poets would wake up at 2 a.m. to write verses by candlelight, and scientists would check their calculations. But tonight, you are not a poet or a scientist. You are a person who has successfully balanced their humors with the help of a few rodent tails and some valerian root. You have no desire to wake up in 2 hours to write a sonnet. You want to stay right here, in the middle of this feather-filled heaven, until the sun is high in the sky. The city is settling into its deepest slumber. The night watchman has passed by again, his voice a distant, fading murmur in the street below. The only sound in your room is the slow, even rhythm of your own breathing and the occasional soft pop of a cooling ember in the fireplace. You are floating in a sea of velvet and mist. The images of the day, the colorful market, the busy docks, the dusty books, are all melting away into a single, peaceful shade of blue. You are safe. You are cared for. You are finally wonderfully tired. A light joke among the scholars of the time was that a man who couldn't sleep was simply a man who had too much fire in his head and not enough water in his heart. You feel like you have plenty of water tonight. You are as fluid and calm as the river that flows through the heart of the city. The memory of the raw Egyptian mouse seems like a dream from another life, a rougher version of the peace you have found here. You have learned that while the ingredients might change, the goal remains the same. Whether it is a whole mouse or just the tail, whether it is eaten raw or brewed into a tea, it is all just a way of telling your body that it is okay to let go. The darkness inside your curtained bed is absolute. It is a rich, deep black that feels heavy and warm, like a physical weight pressing down on your eyelids. You don't try to fight it. You welcome it. You let it pull you down, deeper and deeper, away from the 16th century and toward the quiet center of your own soul. You think about the apothecary closing his shop, putting out the candles, and climbing into his own bed. You think about the mice in the rafters, finally safe from the herbalist's jars, scurrying about in the quiet dark. Everything is in its place. Everything is as it should be. You are drifting now, the edges of your consciousness fraying like an old piece of silk. The thoughts of humors and spirits and powders are becoming meaningless, just sounds that float past you without sticking. You are no longer a resident of a Renaissance city. You are just a heartbeat in the dark, a slow, steady, quiet heartbeat. The feathers are soft, the air is still, the night is long. You have all the time in the world to rest. The quirky truth about the Renaissance is that for all its art and beauty, it was a very smelly place. People used heavy perfumes made of musk and ambergris to hide the fact that they only bathed once a month. You can almost smell the faint scent of lavender that someone has tucked into your pillowcase to help you drift off. It is a clean, sharp smell that cuts through the heaviness of the velvet. It reminds you of a garden in the sunlight, a place of bees and bright flowers. It is a happy thought to take with you into your dreams. You feel a final, deep sigh escape your lips. The tension in your stomach, the little knot of worry that you carry around during the day, has finally unraveled. You are as loose as a string of pearls that has been cut. You are scattered across the bed, a collection of relaxed muscles and quiet thoughts. The mouse tail tea has done its work. The apothecary's wisdom has proven true. You are going to sleep now, and it will be a deep, restorative rest that lasts until the bells of the cathedral wake the city for the morning market. But that is a long way off. For now, there is only the mist and the velvet and the silence. You are falling. You are floating. You are gone. The Renaissance fades into the shadows, leaving you in the quiet space where all stories begin and end. You are at peace. The rodent remedies of the past have led you here, to this moment of perfect stillness. You don't need to think about Section 4 or the Victorian world just yet. You just need to be. Just be. Sleep. As your mind takes its final steps away from the waking world, you imagine the stars over the city. They are the same stars that the Egyptians saw, and the same stars the monks prayed under. They are the constant witnesses to the human struggle for sleep. They don't judge you for your restlessness, and they don't laugh at your strange cures. They just shine, a cold, beautiful light in the vastness of the night. You are part of that vastness now. You are a star. You are the mist. You are the silence. Good night, Renaissance traveler. The apothecary has gone to bed, the night watchman has finished his rounds, and the mice are quiet in the walls. The world is yours to dream in. Let the velvet hold you. Let the feathers lift you. Let the darkness take you home. You have earned this rest. You have followed the trail of the mouse through time, and it has brought you to the doorway of sleep. Step through. The door is open, and the room inside is warm and quiet. You are there. You are finally there. The dark velvet curtains of your Renaissance bed seem to grow thicker and heavier, turning from a deep, misty blue into a rich, suffocating crimson. You are no longer in a drafty room above a winding city street. The air has become warmer and stiller, filled with the faint, metallic scent of burning coal and the soft, rhythmic hiss of a gas lamp mounted on the wall. You are sitting in a high, backed armchair made of dark, polished mahogany, upholstered in a fabric so soft it feels like stroking the back of a giant, sleepy bumblebee. You are in a Victorian parlor, a room filled with so many objects that it feels like the inside of a very elegant treasure chest. There are porcelain figurines, framed needlepoints of weeping willows, and heavy books with gold leaf edges that catch the low light of the fire. You are wearing a thick, quilted dressing gown that wraps around you like a heavy hug, yet you still feel a strange, lingering restlessness in your chest. You are staring into the fireplace, where the coal glows with a deep, inner heat, shifting from orange to a ghostly white as it turns to ash. You probably believe that the Victorians were the masters of comfort, with their overstuffed sofas and their endless pots of tea. In reality, the Victorian era was a time of great digestive distress and nocturnal anxiety. You have just finished a heavy supper, a tradition of the time that involved consuming a multi-course meal of potted meats, thick gravies, and suet puddings just before heading to bed. Your stomach feels like it is trying to process a collection of lead weights, and your mind is buzzing with the strange, vivid thoughts that only come from a late night feast. It is the age of the nightmare, and many people in this room believe that the terrifying visions they have in their sleep are directly caused by the slice of toasted cheese or the cold mutton they ate by candlelight. You look down at your hands, which are resting on the velvet arms of the chair. Beside you, on a small lace-covered table, sits a silver tray. On the tray is a small glass of dark, amber liquid and a little plate. Even in this age of steam engines and early electricity, the old folk remedies have not quite vanished from the world. In the countryside, your grandmother might still insist that a fried mouse is the only true cure for a child's bedwetting or a persistent cough that keeps the household awake. You imagine the tiny creature, prepared with the same care as a Sunday roast, serving as a desperate, furry bridge to a better night's sleep, while the city doctors might sniff at such superstition. The belief in the power of the mouse remains a quiet, persistent whisper in the shadows of the industrial age. It is a bit like wearing a high-tech fitness tracker on one wrist and carrying a lucky rabbit's foot in your pocket. We like to think we are modern, but we still have a soft spot for the ancient magic of the earth. Historians still argue whether the shift from the second sleep of the Middle Ages to our modern single block sleep was a result of the invention of the gas lamp or the strict, uncompromising tick of the factory clock. In this Victorian world, the night is no longer a time of shared silence or quiet prayer. It has become a time that must be conquered and controlled. You look at the clock on the mantelpiece, a heavy brass instrument that counts the seconds with a loud, insistent click-clack that seems to echo through your skull. You are trying to fit your life into the schedule of a world that is suddenly moving very fast, and your body is protesting by refusing to shut down. You feel like a steam engine that has been stoked too high and is now sitting at the station, hissing and vibrating with nowhere to go. A mainstream historical fact of this era is the invention and widespread use of chloral hydrate, one of the first true sedative hypnotics. It was marketed as a miracle for the weary, a way to escape the soot and noise of the city and find immediate chemical peace. However, it was also incredibly addictive and dangerous, a dark secret hidden behind the velvet curtains of many a respectable home. You look at the amber liquid in your glass, a nightcap, and wonder if it is a simple glass of brandy or something far more potent, designed by a chemist in a white lab coat. The Victorians were obsessed with nerves and neurasthenia, a catch-all term for the exhaustion that comes from living in a world that is changing too quickly. If you feel tired just from checking your emails, imagine how a Victorian felt watching the entire landscape of their country transform from green fields into smoking chimneys in a single generation. You lean back in your chair, letting your head rest against the soft upholstery. The heat from the fire is making your face feel warm and heavy, a pleasant contrast to the cool shadows in the corners of the room. You watch a small plume of smoke rise from the coal, twisting and turning like a ghost dancing in the air. You think about the heavy supper. Again, a quirky tidbit from the 19th century is the popularity of dream books, which people would consult to interpret the visions they had after eating too much rich food. If you dreamed of a mouse, it was said to represent a small but persistent worry. If you dreamed of a mouse in your soup, it was a sign of a coming family argument. It is a funny thought to imagine a whole society sitting down at breakfast to discuss their indigestion-induced hallucinations, as if they were messages from the divine. The room is very quiet now, save for the occasional soft pop of a coal ember and the distant, muffled sound of a carriage rolling over the cobblestones outside. The gas lamp flickers slightly, making the shadows of the furniture stretch and shrink on the wallpaper. The wallpaper itself is a busy pattern of green vines and golden lilies, so intricate that it feels like the walls are alive and breathing. You find yourself tracing the patterns with your eyes, following a vine from the floor up to the ceiling and back down again. It is a hypnotic exercise, a way to occupy the part of your brain that wants to worry about tomorrow's appointments or the price of coal. You are just a passenger in this room, a traveler resting in a station on the way to the land of sleep. You think about the contrast between the raw mouse of Egypt and the fried mouse of the Victorian countryside. It seems that as humans became more civilized, they felt the need to cook their remedies, though the underlying logic remained the same. We have always looked to the small, humble creatures of the world to help us solve our biggest problems. The mouse, which lives in the hidden spaces of our homes, is a symbol of the things we don't see. The quiet anxieties, the subtle rhythms of the house, and the persistent pull of the earth. By incorporating the mouse into a remedy, the ancients and the Victorians alike were trying to make peace with the darkness. They were saying, "I see you, little creature of the night, and I ask for your help to navigate the shadows." A light joke that a Victorian gentleman might share over a glass of port is that the only thing more persistent than a mouse in the larder is a wife who wants to redecorate the drawing room. It's a gentle, slightly dusty kind of humor that reflects a world where everything has its place and everyone has their role. You let a small smile touch your lips as you think about the absurdity of it all. The heavy velvet, the gold leaf books, the fried mice, and the complex interpretation of dreams. It is a grand, beautiful, and slightly ridiculous stage that we have built for ourselves. You don't have to play your part tonight. You can just be the audience, watching the fire die down and the shadows grow long. You feel a sudden, deep yawn stretch your jaw, a sign that the nightcap, or perhaps just the warmth of the fire, is finally doing its work. Your eyelids feel like they have tiny weights attached to them, pulling them down toward your cheeks. You don't fight it this time. You let your eyes close, and the image of the red velvet parlor begins to fade, replaced by a soft, warm darkness. You can still hear the clock, but it sounds further away now, like a heartbeat in another room. You can still smell the coal smoke, but it is a faint, comforting scent, like a memory of a winter's day long ago. You are moving away from the physical world and into the world of the mind. In the Victorian era, they spoke of the land of Nod, a whimsical name for the place we go when we sleep. It was seen as a peaceful country where there were no factories, no suit, and no social obligations. You are crossing the border into that country now. You can feel the soft grass under your feet and the cool, clean air on your face. There are no heavy suppers here, and no ticking clocks. There is only a vast, open sky and the gentle sound of a distant stream. You are free to wander, to explore, and to rest. The Victorian parlor was a beautiful cage, but you have found the key and stepped out into the night. Historians often find that Victorians were surprisingly obsessed with the science of the bed. They argued about the best direction for a bed to face. Some believed them always point north to align with the Earth's magnetic fields, and the exact thickness and the mathematics require for moral health. It seems that every generation thinks they are the first to discover the correct way to sleep, yet every generation still finds itself tossing and turning. You find comfort in this universal struggle. You are not failing at sleeping. You are just participating in a very old, very human tradition. Whether you are on a reed mat or a mahogany bed, the challenge is the same: to quiet the mind enough to let the body rest. The fire in the grate has crumbled into a pile of glowing red jewels. The room is growing cooler, and the shadows have swallowed up the porcelain figurines and the gold leaf books. You pull your dressing gown tighter around you, but you don't feel the need to stay in the chair. In your mind, you are already lying down, tucked under a heavy quilt made of silk and down. The weight of the quilt is a comfort, a physical reminder that you are protected and safe. You think about the mice in the fields outside the city, curled up in their tiny burrows, their hearts beating fast, but their bodies at rest. You are just like them, finding a quiet corner in a loud world. A quirky tidbit that adds to the charm of the era is the invention of the alarm bed, a contraption that would literally tilt and dump the sleeper onto the floor at a certain time. It was designed for people who struggled to wake up, but it serves as a reminder of how much the Victorians feared laziness and wasted time. Luckily, you are in the night time version of this story, where the only goal is to stay exactly where you are. There are no tilting beds here, only the steady, supportive embrace of your armchair and the soft, velvet silence of the parlor. You have nowhere to be and nothing to do for the next 8 hours. You find yourself thinking about the mouse, tail tea from the Renaissance, and the raw mouse of Egypt. They are like echoes in the back of your mind, reminders of where you have been. Each remedy was a stepping stone, a way of dealing with the same mystery of the night. The Victorian nightcap is just the latest version of that story. You take a final, deep breath, and as you exhale, you feel the last bit of tension leave your body. Your fingers go limp on the velvet, and your chin settles against the silk of your dressing gown. You are a masterpiece of relaxation, a living statue of peace in a room full of beautiful things. The gas lamp has finally burned out, or perhaps someone has come in and turned it off while you weren't looking. The room is now lit only by the faint, silver light of the moon, coming through a gap in the heavy curtains. It is the same moon that shone on the Nile and the monastery and the apothecary shop. It is the one constant in your journey through time. It watches over you with a cold, silent grace, a celestial night light for a world at rest. You feel a deep sense of connection to that light, It doesn't ask anything of you. It just exists, a silent companion in the dark. You are drifting now, floating on a sea of crimson velvet and coal smoke memories. The heavy supper has been forgotten, and the nightmare has been chased away by the steady rhythm of your breathing. You are no longer a Victorian gentleman or a tired traveler. You are just a soul in the land of Nod, moving through the soft, grey mist toward the center of a dream. The sounds of the world have faded away completely, leaving you in a state of perfect, weightless silence. It is the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. As you fall deeper into the dark, you imagine a small mouse scurrying across the rug in the parlor. It doesn't want to be a remedy or a cure. It just wants to find a crumb of that toasted cheese you left on the tray. You watch it in your mind, its tiny whiskers twitching, its eyes bright and curious. It is a part of the house, a part of the night, and a part of your story. You let the image of the mouse fade away, replaced by the soft, repeating pattern of the wallpaper lilies. They seem to be waving at you, a gentle goodbye as you leave the 19th century behind. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. The fire is out, the lamp is dark, and the world is asleep. You are part of the darkness now, a quiet ripple in the velvet air. There is no rush to wake up. The morning is a long way off, and the factory clock has finally stopped ticking in your head. You are safe. You are warm. You are tired. The story of the Victorian parlor and the fried mouse is over, and a new story is about to begin. But you don't need to know what it is yet. You just need to sleep. The quirky truth about the Victorians is that despite their stiff collars and their strict rules, they were a people of deep imagination and hidden passions. They saw spirits in the shadows and magic in the mundane. You carry a bit of that magic with you as you drift off. The world is more than just gears and steam. It is a place of wonder and mystery, especially at night. You let that wonder carry you down, deeper and deeper, into the heart of the night. You are almost there. The land of Nod is waiting for you with open arms. The silence is absolute. The peace is total. You are gone, a ghost in the velvet, a dream in the dark. The journey continues, but you are resting now. You are finally wonderfully at rest. Sleep well, Victorian traveler. The night is your sanctuary, and the shadows are your friends. The mice are quiet, the fire is ash, and the world is the warm, amber glow of the Victorian parlor begins to stretch and thin, losing its comforting richness. The scent of coal smoke remains, but it is no longer the cozy aroma of a domestic hearth. It has become sharper, more metallic and pervasive. You are no longer reclining in a mahogany armchair. Instead, you feel the vibration of heavy iron beneath your feet and the rhythmic, pounding heart of a steam engine somewhere in the distance. You are standing on a platform, perhaps in a grand station like St. Pancras or a bustling industrial hub in the north, where the world is being rebuilt with steel, grease, and sweat. The night air is thick with a fine, grey soot that clings to your clothes and leaves a faint, gritty taste on your tongue. You are wearing a rougher fabric now, perhaps the sturdy wool of a laborer or the heavy coat of a night shift engineer. The soft hiss of the gas lamp has been replaced by the buzzy, aggressive hum of early electric arc lights, which cast harsh, blue, white shadows that seem to vibrate with the energy of the new century. You are witnessing the death of a way of life that has existed since the dawn of time. For thousands of years, Humans lived by the rising and setting of the sun, and for much of that history, they enjoyed the luxury of the second sleep. You remember the monastery and the Renaissance bed, where the middle of the night was a time for quiet reflection, a midnight snack, or a prayer. But the steam engine does not care about the moon, and the factory whistle does not respect the humors of the body. You are adjusting to a world where time is no longer a fluid, natural thing, but a rigid grid of hours and minutes that must be filled with productivity. You probably believe that the Industrial Revolution was just about machines and factories, but it was also a revolution of the human soul, a forced synchronization of your internal clock to the cold, unyielding tick of the mechanical regulator. Historians still argue whether the transition from biphasic sleep to our modern single block sleep was a universal human evolution, or if it was a specific cultural trauma forced upon the working class by the arrival of artificial light and the 8-hour workday. Some suggest that our bodies still crave that midnight waking hour, the watch, as it was once called, and that much of our modern insomnia is simply our ancient biology trying to find its way back to the two-part rest of our ancestors. In this loud, bright world, you are a pioneer of the sleepless age. You are learning to ignore the natural signals of your brain and instead listen to the demands of the machine. It is a heavy burden to carry, one that makes the raw mouse of Egypt or the fried mouse of the Victorian countryside seem like relics from a much simpler, kinder world. You walk away from the station and into the narrow streets of an industrial district. Even here, in the shadow of the great chimneys, the old remedies persist in the quiet corners. You pass a small, crooked house where a woman sits by a window, her face lit by a single candle. She is preparing a mouse pie, a traditional folk remedy that has survived the transition from the farm to the city. To the modern industrialist, a mouse is just a pest that chews on the leather belts of the looms. But to the person who hasn't slept in 3 days because of the roar of the engines, the mouse is still a symbol of the earth's quiet power. You imagine the taste of that pie, a mixture of rough pastry and the tiny, delicate bones of the field mouse, and you realize that even in a world of steam and steel, we still reach for the familiar, the organic, and the strange to find our balance. A quirky tidbit that reveals the desperation of the age is the invention of Dada, Scott's electric hairbrush, and various electric belts that promise to cure insomnia by restoring nerve force through the power of the battery. People would wrap themselves in wires and metal plates before bed, hoping that a few jolts of electricity would do what the mouse, tailed tea, and the monastery prayers could no longer achieve. It is the beginning of our obsession with gadgets to fix our biology. If you think your current sleep tracking ring is a bit much, imagine trying to drift off while literally tethered to a lead-acid battery and a set of humming copper coils. It's a wonder anyone slept at all during the 1890s, given that their beds were starting to look like early versions of the electric chair. You find a place to rest, a small room in a boarding house that smells of damp brick and machine oil. The walls are thin, and you can hear the constant, rhythmic thrum, thrum, thrum of a nearby textile mill. At first, the sound is an intrusion, a jagged edge that cuts through your attempts to relax. But as you lie there on a thin mattress stuffed with horsehair, the sound begins to change. It becomes a lullaby of sorts, the heartbeat of the modern world. You start to breathe in time with the pistons. In, as the steam builds; out, as the pressure is released. You are becoming part of the machine, a small gear in a vast, global mechanism. The anxiety of being productive begins to fade as you realize that the machine will keep turning whether you are awake or not. A mainstream historical fact of this era is the implementation of standard time. Before the railways and the steam engines, every town had its own local time based on the position of the sun. But you can't run a train schedule if London is 10 minutes ahead of Bristol. In 1883, the world was chopped up into time zones, and the human heart was officially subordinated to the clock. You are no longer living in your time, you are living in railway time. This synchronization made the world more efficient, but it also made the night more stressful. You are constantly aware of the passing seconds, the minutes ticking away toward the morning whistle. It is a new kind of pressure, a mental weight that your ancestors on the Nile would have found utterly baffling. They had the sun and the moon. You have a brass watch and a schedule. You think about the knocker, up, the professional human alarm clock, whose job it is to walk the streets with a long pole, tapping on the windows of the workers to wake them for the early shift. It is a funny thought to imagine a man being paid to be your personal snooze button. Nuisance. You wonder if the knocker up ever felt guilty for stealing those last precious moments of a second's sleep. Probably not, as he was likely just as tired as the people he was waking. In this world, sleep is treated as a commodity, something to be budgeted and spent wisely, rather than a natural gift to be enjoyed. The sarcasm of the universe is evident here. We invented machines to save us labor, yet we ended up working longer hours and sleeping less than ever before. The flickering electric light in the hallway casts a strange, jittery shadow under your door. It is the first blue light problem, though nobody calls it that yet. The light is too constant, too artificial, and it tricks your brain into thinking the sun is always about to rise. You miss the soft, dying embers of the Victorian fire and the gentle, fading glow of the apothecary's candles. Here, the light is a command to stay alert. You close your eyes tightly, trying to summon the darkness of the monastery cell. You visualize the mouse from the Egyptian desert, its gray fur soft and cool against the heat of your thoughts. You use the memory of the past as a shield against the noise of the present. The heavy supper of the Victorian era has evolved into the quick snack of the industrial age. You might have had a piece of cold bread and a cup of bitter chicory coffee before lying down, a meal designed for fuel rather than pleasure. Your stomach is quiet, but your nerves are humming like a telegraph wire. You think about the scholarly debate again. If we were meant to sleep in two parts, perhaps this feeling of restlessness at 2 a.m. is not a disorder, but a homecoming. You decide to stop fighting it. If you cannot sleep, you will simply exist in the dark, watching the shadows of the steam pipes dance on the ceiling. You are a witness to the middle of the night, a guardian of the hours that the factory hasn't claimed yet. A light joke among the engineers of the day was that a man is just a very inefficient engine that requires 8 hours of down time for every 16 hours of running time. They were obsessed with thermal efficiency and friction, and they viewed sleep as a necessary evil, a flaw in the design of the human animal. You let a sleepy, sarcastic chuckle escape your lips. If you are an engine, you are currently experiencing a significant amount of friction. You imagine yourself being lubricated with a bit of that old mouse tail tea, the gears of your mind finally slick enough to slide into the dark. It is a strange, mechanical way to think about rest, but it fits the world you are currently inhabiting. The thrumming of the mill seems to be slowing down, or perhaps you are just getting used to it. The air in the room is cooling. The heat of the day is labor finally dissipating into the brickwork. You feel the weight of your own limbs, heavy and solid like cast iron. You are no longer a person of velvet and lace. You are a person of wool and stone. There is a rugged kind of peace in that. You don't have to be delicate or refined. You just have to endure. You let your shoulders sink into the horsehair mattress, feeling the scratchy texture of the sheets against your neck. It isn't comfortable in the modern sense, but it is honest. It is the bed of a world that is building the future. You think about the mice that live in the engine rooms, the tiny creatures that scurry over the flywheels and hide in the coal bunkers. They have adapted to the noise and the heat, finding their own quiet rhythms in the heart of the chaos. You are doing the same. You are finding the silence inside the sound. You imagine yourself as a small, quiet mouse, tucked away in a corner of this giant, steaming world. The predators are all metallic now. Whistles, gears, and clocks, but you are safe in your little hole in time. You let the vibration of the building become a rocking motion, a mechanical cradle that lulls you toward the edge of consciousness. The transition from the industrial age to the age of early science is beginning to feel inevitable. You can almost see the white, coated doctors of the next century waiting in the shadows, ready to study your brain waves and measure your movements. But for now, you are still in the world of steam. You are a ghost in the machine, a flicker of organic life in a landscape of iron. You feel a sense of pride in your survival. You have made it through the desert, the cold stone, the misty streets, and the velvet parlors, and you have arrived here, at the peak of human ingenuity, and you still just want a nap. It is the great human constant. No matter how many engines we build, we still need the dark. The lost second sleep is a ghost that haunts this room. You can almost feel the presence of all the people who used to wake up now, to talk and laugh and share a meal. Their absence makes the night feel lonelier, but also more profound. You are holding the space for them. You are the bridge between the old world and the new. You think about the raw mouse again, a primitive anchor in a world of high-pressure steam. It is a reminder that under all the grease and soot, we are still creatures of the earth. We still need the simple things. We still need to breathe. We still need to let go. A quirky truth of the late 19th century is that many people actually feared that the speed of the steam engine, traveling at the blinding speed of 30 miles per hour, would cause their brains to come loose or their hearts to stop. This anxiety, known as railway spine or shattered nerves, was a common reason for insomnia. People felt that the world was moving faster than their souls could follow. You feel that way tonight? You feel like you are standing on the back of a racing locomotive, trying to catch your breath. But the train is slowing down now. The station is in sight. The steam is being vented into the night air with a long, slow, satisfying hiss that sounds like the word sleep. You find yourself yawning, a deep, mechanical stretch that makes your joints creak like a well-used loom. The tension in your hands, which have been clenched into fists against the noise, finally releases. Your fingers curl softly against the wool blanket. You are drifting. The blue, white light of the arc lamps has faded into a soft, gray blur. The thrumming of the mill has become a distant hum, no louder than the buzzing of a fly in a summer garden. You are no longer in the industrial district. You are in the space between the ticks of the clock, the quiet gap where time doesn't exist. You think about the soporific bed, designed by an inventor in 1895, which was supposed to rock the sleeper at exactly 60 beats per minute to match a resting heart. You don't need a special bed for that. You have the rhythm of the universe. You feel the slow, steady pulse of the earth through the floor and the mattress. It is a deep, resonant bass note that vibrates in your bones. It is the sound of the world turning, a motion that has never stopped and never will. You are riding that motion into the dark. You are safe. You are part of the plan. Historians often note that the early 20th century was the beginning of the Great Sleep Recession, where we began to lose an average of 2 hours of rest per night compared to our ancestors. You are feeling that loss tonight, but you are also reclaiming it. By simply lying here and refusing to be productive, you are performing an act of rebellion. You are choosing the mouse over the machine. You are choosing the dark over the light. You are choosing yourself. It is a beautiful, quiet victory. The last of the steam has cleared, leaving the air cold and still. The boarding house is silent, save for the heavy breathing of the other workers in the rooms around you. You are all together in this, a community of the tired, a brotherhood of the weary. You feel a sense of warmth and connection to them, even though you have never met. You are all just trying to find your way home to the land of Nod. You close your eyes, and the image of the steam engine dissolves into a soft, swirling mist. You are falling now, but it isn't a scary fall. It's a gentle descent into a pool of cool, dark water. You think about the mouse pie one last time. It's a bit of a joke, really. The things we believe will save us. But there is a truth in it, too. We need the small, the humble, and the strange to remind us that we are alive. You are alive. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are moving. You are a miracle of biology in a world of iron. You let the thought be the last thing in your mind as you finally cross the threshold. The factory whistle is silent. The clock has stopped. The second sleep is waiting for you on the other side. The silence is complete. The vibration has stopped. You are floating in a void of gray and silver, a place where steam and electricity can't reach you. You are at peace. The industrial age is a memory, a story told by a flickering lamp. You are moving forward, but you are resting now. You are finally, wonderfully resting. The mice are quiet in the engine rooms, and the world is still. Sleep well, engineer of the night. The machines will wait for you. The future will wait for you. But for now, there is only the dark and the deep, quiet rest you have earned. The gray mist of the industrial boarding house and the heavy thrum of the textile mill begin to dissolve, replaced by a brightness that feels sharp and clean. You are no longer breathing in the soot of the coal fires or the grease of the steam engines. The air around you has a sterile, cool quality, carrying the faint, sharp scent of rubbing alcohol, floor wax, and something ozone, like as if a small bolt of lightning just passed through the room. You are lying on a narrow bed with crisp, white sheets that feel smooth and slightly stiff against your skin. The warmth of the Victorian velvet and the weight of the monk's wool are gone, replaced by a thin, hospital-grade blanket that is functional but lacks a soul. You are in a laboratory in the middle of the 20th century, a place where the mysteries of the night are being measured by men in long white coats and heavy, rimmed glasses, instead of a silk bag containing a dried mouse or a cup of mouse-tail tea. Your head is now adorned with a complex crown of wires. You feel the cool, sticky sensation of conductive paste on your scalp, holding small metal discs in place. These electrodes are the new amulets of the modern age. They are not meant to ward off demons or balance your yellow bile. They are designed to catch the silent electrical whispers of your brain. You are connected to a large, humming machine in the corner of the room, a device that turns your thoughts into jagged ink lines on a never-ending scroll of paper. You probably believe that this era of science finally brought us the answers we were looking for, stripping away the superstitions of the past to reveal the simple mechanics of rest. In reality, the early sleep scientists were just as baffled as the Egyptian healers, only they had more graph paper to record their confusion. A mainstream historical fact that changed everything during this time was the invention of the electroencephalogram, or EEG, by Hans Berger in the 1920s. For the first time in human history, we could see sleep. We discovered that the brain doesn't just turn off like a lamp. It moves through a series of rhythmic dances, shifting from the slow, rolling waves of deep rest to the frantic, jagged spikes of dreaming. You are part of this discovery now. You are a data point in a folder, subject, rather than a person. There is a certain irony in trying to fall asleep while being watched by a man with a clipboard who is waiting for you to do something natural. It is like trying to act casual while a professional photographer follows you through a grocery store. You feel a self-conscious pressure to sleep well, which, as any insomniac knows, is the fastest way to stay awake until sunrise. You look around the quiet laboratory. The walls are a pale, neutral green, a color that was supposed to be calming, but mostly just looks like a tired lime. The only light comes from a small desk lamp in the next room, where a researcher sits, his silhouette cast against the frosted glass of the door. You hear the rhythmic, hypnotic scratch of the pens against the moving paper. It is a soft, dry sound, not unlike the rustle of the papyrus reeds along the Nile or the scratching of a mouse in a Renaissance wall. Even here, in the heart of modern science, the sounds of the night haven't really changed. They have just been captured by a machine. You imagine the ink moving up and down, recording every little flicker of your consciousness, every half-formed worry about your car's engine or the price of milk. Historians still argue whether the medicalization of sleep, treating it as a biological function to be optimized rather than a natural part of the human experience, actually improved our quality of life, or if it simply created a new kind of anxiety by turning sleep into something we can fail at. The scientists of the 1950s may have accidentally invented the modern sleep disorder. Before this, if you couldn't sleep, you were just a person who was awake at night. Now, you are a person with a regular sleep architecture. It's a bit like the difference between having a messy room and being told you have a spatially disorganized environment. The new vocabulary doesn't actually help you find your socks, but it certainly makes you feel more official about losing them. You think about the mouse, our old friend from the previous centuries. In this laboratory setting, the mouse has undergone a transformation. It is no longer eaten raw, fried, or brewed into tea. Instead, the mouse has become the primary subject of study. Somewhere down the hall, in a room filled with identical plastic cages, hundreds of mice are being observed by researchers who are trying to find the sleep center of the brain. The quirky tidbit that would make the Egyptian healer laugh is that modern scientists spent decades trying to prove that mice have the same sleep patterns as humans, only to discover that mice are nocturnal and possess a completely different relationship with the dark. We spent thousands of years eating them to get their power, and now we spend millions of dollars watching them sleep to see if they share ours. It is a long, strange relationship we have with these tiny creatures, a bond built on the shared experience of being awake when everyone else is dreaming. A light joke that the lab assistants might share over a lukewarm cup of coffee is that the only difference between a scientist and a mouse is that the scientist gets paid to stay in the maze. You find yourself smiling at the thought. You are in your own kind of maze tonight, a maze of wires and white sheets. You try to relax your jaw, which has been clenched in anticipation of the researcher's next check-in. You remember the crocodile, dung sunscreen, and the powder of sympathy, and realize that even though we have traded dung for electrodes, the human heart is still looking for the same thing, a reason to feel safe enough to let go. The machine in the corner doesn't provide safety. It only provides data. True safety has to come from within, from the quiet realization that the world will continue to turn, even if you aren't there to watch the pens move. You close your eyes and try to imagine the paper scroll moving in the other room. You visualize your brain waves as a vast, rolling ocean. Right now, the waves are small and choppy, the surface disturbed by the wind of your thoughts. You want them to become long, slow swells, the kind that carry a ship peacefully toward the horizon. You breathe deeply, feeling the cool air of the lab fill your lungs. You let it out slowly, imagining the jagged lines on the paper smoothing out into gentle curves. You are training yourself to be a good subject, to provide the researchers with the beautiful, rhythmic patterns of stage for sleep. It is a performance for an audience of one, a man in a white coat, who is probably more interested in his ham sandwich than your dreams. A quirky fringe tidbit from this era of sleep science is the story of Nathaniel Kleitman and his assistant, who spent 32 days living in the total darkness of Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. They wanted to see if the human body would naturally revert to a 28-hour day without the influence of the sun. They lived in a world of damp stone and absolute silence, far deeper and more profound than the silence of the monastery. It is a fascinating, slightly mad experiment that highlights our obsession with restarting our internal clocks. Imagine staying in a cave for a month just to see if you can change your bedtime. It's the ultimate commitment to fixing your insomnia. Compared to that, lying in a lab with a few wires on your head seems like a luxury vacation. The researcher in the next room moves, and you hear the soft clink of a glass and the turning of a page. The laboratory is a temple of observation. Every sigh you make, every toss and turn, is being noted. You think about how different this is from the Victorian parlor, where your nightmare was blamed on a toasted cheese sandwich. Here, your nightmare would be categorized as a nocturnal paroxysm or a REM sleep intrusion. The labels are longer and more expensive, but the feeling of waking up in a cold sweat is exactly the same. We have become very good at naming the shadows, but we are still afraid of them. You let a sleepy, sarcastic sigh escape your lips. If only we could cure insomnia by simply giving it a more impressive name, like the midnight cognitive persistence syndrome. You find yourself thinking about the raw mouse again. If you were to tell the scientist in the next room that you once ate a mouse to cure your restlessness, he would probably write a very long paper about your psychological regression and atavistic belief systems. But you know something he doesn't. You know that the mouse represents a connection to the natural world that he has tried to replace with vacuum tubes and copper wires. The mouse was a reminder that we are animals governed by the same ancient rhythms as the creatures in the fields. The scientist sees you as a machine, a system of inputs and outputs that can be calibrated and tuned. You are caught between these two worlds, the magic of the past and the mechanics of the future. The electro crown on your head is starting to feel lighter, as if your brain has simply accepted the presence of the wires. The conductive paste is drying, and the cool sensation has turned into a dull, familiar weight. You are drifting. The rhythmic scratching of the pens has become a distant, soothing background noise, like the sound of crickets in a summer meadow. You find yourself moving toward a state of mind where the laboratory disappears. The pale green walls begin to melt away, and the smell of alcohol is replaced by something softer, something like the smell of old paper and rain. You are no longer a subject in a study. You are just a person floating in the dark. A mainstream historical fact that often goes unmentioned is that the discovery of REM sleep in 1953 happened almost by accident. Scientists noticed that infants' eyes moved rapidly under their lids while they slept, and they realized that the brain was actually more active during dreaming than it was during many waking tasks. This changed the way we thought about rest forever. It meant that sleep wasn't just off time. It was a period of intense, creative work. You feel a sense of relief at this thought. If your brain is busy dreaming, it means it hasn't abandoned you. It is just working on a different project, one that involves flying through clouds or talking to ancient healers. You are not doing nothing. When you sleep, you are participating in the most complex internal theater in the known universe. A light joke among the patients of these early labs was that the best way to get a good night's sleep was to wait until the study was over and you could finally go home to your own lumpy mattress. You can relate to that. There is no place like home, especially when home doesn't involve being tethered to a 300-pound machine. But even in this sterile environment, you are finding a way to rest. You are learning to ignore the artificiality of it all and find the quiet center of your own being. You are the master of your own sleep architecture, and tonight you are building a cathedral of peace. Historians still argue whether our ancestors were actually more rested than we are. They didn't have the stress of modern deadlines, but they had the stress of wolves, famine, and the plague. They didn't have loud machines, but they had the constant, heavy labor of survival. Perhaps every age has its own version of insomnia, and every age has its own mouse to help it through the night. You are just the latest version of this story. You are the bridge between the ancient sand and the modern steel. You carry the memories of all the nights you have spent in this journey, and they are all merging into a single, peaceful moment. The researcher turns off his desk lamp, and the lab is plunged into a deeper, softer darkness. The only light now comes from the glowing dials of the EEG machine, which look like a tiny, distant city on the horizon. The pens continue their work, but you no longer care what they are writing. They can record your dreams, but they can't experience them. They can measure your heart rate, but they can't feel the warmth of the memories you are holding. You are reclaiming your night from the scientists. You are taking your sleep back. The lost second sleep feels very close now. You realize that you have been awake during this watch period of the night, just like the monks and the industrial workers. But instead of praying or working, you have been learning. You have been traveling through time, gathering the secrets of the night. You feel a sense of completion, as if you have finally solved the puzzle of the mouse and the moon. The answer isn't in a remedy or a machine. It's in the journey itself. It's in the willingness to sit with the dark and listen to what it has to say. You think about the mice in the cages down the hall. In your mind, you open the doors and let them out. You watch as they scurry through the sterile hallways, their tiny feet making no sound on the waxed floors. They are heading for the exits, heading back to the fields and the gardens where they belong. You go with them, leaving the wires and the paste behind. You are free. You are no longer a subject. You are a dreamer. You are a traveler. You are a mouse in the great, dark forest of the world, and you know exactly where to find your burrow. The silence of the lab is now complete. The rhythmic scratching has faded into the background of your mind, becoming a heartbeat that is not your own, but the heartbeat of the building itself. You are sinking deeper into the mattress, which finally feels soft and welcoming. The white sheets are no longer stiff. They are as light as a summer cloud. You feel a deep, satisfying heaviness in your limbs, the kind of heaviness that tells you that sleep is no longer a goal, but a destination you have already reached. You imagine the final scroll of the night. The pens are making long, smooth, graceful lines. They are the lines of someone who has let go. They are the lines of someone who is finally, truly at rest. You are a masterpiece of data, a perfect example of a human being at peace. The scientist will find your chart in the morning and be amazed at how quickly you drifted off. He will write a note about the efficient transition to deep wave activity, but he will never know that the secret was a raw mouse in Egypt and a velvet parlor in London. A quirky truth of the 20th century is that while we were trying to master the atom and fly to the moon, we were still just as vulnerable to the night as our ancestors. We built taller buildings and brighter lights, but the darkness still waits for us every evening. You have learned to be friends with that darkness. You have learned that it isn't an enemy to be conquered with electricity, but a companion to be embraced. You are drifting now, moving away from the lab and toward the final chapter of your journey. You are ready. You are safe. You are tired. The air in the room feels warmer now, as if the heaters have finally caught up with the night. You pull the thin blanket up to your chin, and for the first time, it feels like enough. You are tucked in, the wires are forgotten, and the world is a distant memory. You are a flicker of light in a dark room, and soon that flicker will go out, leaving only the quiet, beautiful void of sleep. You are almost there. The ocean of the night is calm, and you are floating on its surface, looking up at the stars that have followed you through every century. Good night, subject of science. The machines have finished their work, and the researcher has gone to sleep in his chair. The world is quiet, the paper is full, and the pens are still. You have found your rest in the most unlikely of places. You have turned the laboratory into a sanctuary. Sleep well. The night is yours, and the dream is just beginning. You are the star of your own story, and the story is finally finding its quiet ending. The last thing you feel is the gentle vibration of the EEG, a soft mechanical purr that sounds like a tiny metal kitten. It is a comforting sound, a reminder that even the machines are tired tonight. You let yourself go, falling into the deep, dark well of the night. There is no one watching you now. There is only you and the darkness and the peace you have found. You are gone. You are resting. You are home. The sterile, blue-tinted lights of the laboratory begin to soften, losing their cold, clinical edge and bleeding into a familiar, warm darkness that smells of laundry detergent, vanilla, scented candles, and the faint, ozone sweetness of a modern home. You are no longer a subject in a study, tethered to a machine by a crown of wires and sticky paste. You feel the cool, effortless glide of high, thread-count cotton sheets against your skin, a texture so fine it makes the Egyptian linen feel like burlap and the monastery wool feel like a bed of thorns. You are lying in your own bed, in the year 2026, surrounded by the quiet technology of a world that has mastered everything except the simple art of closing its eyes. Electro crown is gone, and in its place is the heavy, comforting weight of a memory foam pillow that seems to remember the exact shape of your head better than you do. You probably believe that we have finally moved past the era of raw mice and herbal superstitions, having replaced them with sophisticated apps and scientifically engineered mattresses. In truth, we are still the same restless creatures who stood on the banks of the Nile, only now our magic amulets are made of silicon and our nocturnal guides. Our podcasts whispered into our ears through tiny plastic buds. You look around your room, which is bathed in the soft, ambient glow of the modern night. There is the tiny, red dot of the television standby light, the soft blue pulse of a charging phone, and the green numbers of a digital clock that seems to watch you with a silent, judgmental stare. It is a far cry from the flickering torches of the Renaissance or the gas lamps of the Victorian parlor. Yet the shadows in the corners are the same shadows that have haunted humanity since the beginning. You reach out a hand and feel the smooth surface of your nightstand. There is no iron pot of mouse, tail tea here, and no silver tray with a fried rodent. Instead, there is a small plastic bottle of melatonin and a glass of filtered water. It is a clean, efficient, and slightly boring way to approach the mystery of the night. You wonder if the Egyptian healer would laugh at our reliance on these tiny, white pills, or if he would recognize them as just another version of the Earth's hidden power. a mainstream historical fact that often gets lost in our modern rush for sleep hygiene, is the relatively recent discovery of the hormone melatonin. It wasn't until 1958 that a dermatologist named Aaron Lerner isolated the substance from the pineal glands of cattle, finally giving us a chemical name for the spirit of sleep that our ancestors had been chasing for millennia. We now know that our brains are governed by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, a tiny cluster of cells that acts as a master clock, responding to the presence and absence of light. We have mapped the territory of the night with incredible precision. Yet knowing the name of the hormone doesn't necessarily make it any easier to fall into its embrace. We are like people who have a perfect map of a forest, but are still somehow lost among the trees. You find yourself staring at your smartphone, which sits on the nightstand like a dormant, glowing eye. It is the modern mouse, a small, palm-sized creature that lives in our most private spaces and demands our constant attention. Only instead of eating it to cure our insomnia, we feed it our time, our focus, and our sleep. Historians still argue whether our modern technology is the ultimate cure for our restlessness, providing us with white noise, guided meditations, and sleep tracking, or if it is the ultimate cause, a never-ending source of blue, light stimulation and digital anxiety. We are caught in a strange paradox where we use the very thing that keeps us awake to try and put us to sleep. It is a bit like the powder of sympathy. From the Renaissance, we are treating the wound with the weapon that caused it, hoping for a miracle of logic, a quirky tidbit that reflects the absurdity of our modern pursuit of rest, is the rise of the smart mattress, a piece of furniture that can cost more than a small car and promises to track your heart rate, adjust its temperature, and even vibrate when you start to snore. We have turned the act of lying down into a high-performance sport, complete with data analytics and monthly subscriptions. You can almost imagine a Victorian gentleman's reaction to a bed that talks back to him. He would probably think it was possessed by the ghost of a particularly judgmental butler. You let a sleepy, sarcastic chuckle escape your lips as you think about the price tags in a modern mattress store. They seem to be based on the idea that you aren't just buying a place to sleep, but a ticket to a different dimension where stress doesn't exist. If only it were that simple. You close your eyes and let the memory of your journey wash over you one last time. You feel the warmth of the Egyptian sand, the bite of the monastery cold, the sweetness of the Renaissance tea, the weight of the Victorian velvet, the vibration of the industrial mill, and the hum of the laboratory. They are all here, in this room, part of the DNA of your rest. You realize that you aren't just one person trying to sleep in 2026. You are the sum of all those people who came before you. Every restless night in history is folded into the fabric of your sheets. You don't need the raw mouse anymore, because you have the perspective of the centuries. You know that the night is not an enemy to be conquered, but a river to be joined. The heavy supper of the Victorians has been replaced by the 3 a.m. Wikipedia rabbit hole, a feast of information that leaves the brain feeling just as bloated and confused as a stomach full of suet pudding. You remember the dream books and realize that we still do the same thing. Only now we search for the meaning of our dreams on internet forums. If you dream of a mouse today, someone on a message board will tell you it represents your subconscious desire for productivity, or perhaps just a need to clean out your pantry. We are still looking for signs and wonders in the dark, still trying to make sense of the strange images that bubble up when the lights go out. The sound of the modern world outside your window is a distant, muted hum. It isn't the roar of a steam engine or the ringing of a bronze bell. It is the collective white noise of a city that never fully shuts down. You hear the far-off drone of a plane, the occasional hiss of a car on a damp road, and the soft, rhythmic ticking of a fan in the corner. This fan is your modern night watchman, a steady, reliable presence that masks the unpredictable noises of the neighborhood. It provides a sanctuary of sound, a predictable landscape where your mind can finally stop scanning for danger. You let your breathing sync with the fan's rotation. In, as the blade turns out, as the air moves past, you think about the lost second sleep once more. In our modern world, if we wake up at 2 a.m., we view it as a failure of our biological machinery. We reach for our phones or our pills, desperate to get back to the correct version of sleep. But maybe, just maybe, that midnight hour is a gift. It is a time when the world is truly yours, a time of absolute privacy and quiet. You decide to stop fighting the wakefulness. If you are awake, you will simply be awake. You will sit with the memories of the mice and the monks and the doctors, and you will wait for the second sleep to find you when it is ready. There is no rush. There are no deadlines in the land of Nod. A light joke that you might tell yourself at 3 a.m. is that if humans were meant to sleep 8 hours straight, we wouldn't have invented the midnight snack or the red later button on our browsers. We are naturally curious, restless creatures, and the night is the perfect time for a little bit of quiet exploration. You imagine yourself as a small mouse in a grand, modern palace, scurrying through the shadows of your own mind, looking for the crumbs of wisdom you have gathered tonight. It is a pleasant, humble image to carry with you. You aren't a victim of insomnia. You are a nocturnal explorer, a traveler who has seen the dawn of history and is now ready for the dawn of tomorrow. The memory foam of your mattress seems to be pulling you down, deeper into its core. It is a supportive gravity, defying sensation, as if you are being held by 1,000 tiny, invisible hands. You think about the lamb bed of the Victorians and the knocker up of the industrial age and feel a deep sense of gratitude that the only thing waking you up tomorrow is a gentle bird chirp sound from your phone. We have come a long way in our pursuit of comfort, and while the perfect sleep remains elusive, the journey itself has been a wonder. You have learned that the best remedy isn't something you eat or a machine you attach to your head. It is the willingness to let go of the day. Historians still argue whether we are the most sleep-deprived generation in history, or if we are simply the most aware of it. While the industrial worker might have slept less, he probably didn't spend his waking hours worrying about the quality of his REM cycles. We have traded physical exhaustion for mental fatigue, a trade that has made the night feel longer and more complicated. But as you lie here, you realize that you have the power to simplify it. You can choose to leave the data and the apps and the theories behind. You can choose to be like the Egyptian on the sand, simply watching the moon and waiting for the tide to turn. The quirky truth about our modern era is that we have recreated almost every ancient remedy in a scientific form. We use weighted blankets that mimic the heavy quilts of the past, aromatherapy that mimics the monastery gardens, and white noise that mimics the rustle of the Nile reeds. We are essentially just very high-tech ancient people, still using the same sensory cues to tell our brains that it is safe to sleep. The raw mouse may be gone, but the spirit of the mouse, the small, grounding presence of the natural world, is still here. You feel it in the coolness of the air from the fan and the softness of the cotton against your skin. You find yourself yawning, a long, slow, satisfying release of tension that starts in your toes and ends at the top of your head. The blue light of the phone has dimmed in your mind, replaced by a soft, velvet blackness that feels like the deep curtains of the Renaissance bed. You are no longer thinking about the word count or the history or the facts. You are just feeling. You feel the weight of your eyelids, the rhythm of your heart, and the stillness of the room. The journey is over. The path has led you back to yourself, to this moment, to this bed. You think about the soporific bed and Dr. Scott's electric hairbrush, and smile at the wonderful, desperate creativity of the human race. We really will try anything, won't we? But tonight, you don't have to try. You just have to be. You are a masterpiece of rest, a quiet monument to the endurance of the human spirit. The mice of the world are all tucked away in their burrows, their whiskers still, their hearts calm. You are joining them. You are one with the shadows and the stars. As you move toward the final threshold, you feel a sense of profound peace. The ancient world and the modern world have finally shaken hands in the dark. The Nile is the same as the tap water in your glass. The monastery bell is the same as the vibration of your phone. The raw mouse is the same as the melatonin pill. They are all just ways of saying, it's okay to stop now. You are stopping. You are letting the world go on without you. You are trusting the night to take care of itself. Everything is in its place. The house is quiet, the fan is humming, and the bed is warm. You are a ripple in the ocean of time, fading away into the deep, still water. There are no more sections to read, no more stories to hear. There is only the silence, and the silence is a beautiful thing. It is the blanket that covers the whole world, making everything equal and everything quiet. You are tucked in, the world is tucked in, and the story is finally, wonderfully complete. The air in the room is soft and still, carrying the faint promise of a peaceful tomorrow. You feel your muscles go limp, one by one, until you are nothing more than a quiet breath in the dark. The memory of the Egyptian sand is the last thing you see, a silver landscape under a crescent moon. You are walking back toward the river, but this time you aren't looking for a cure. You are just looking at the water. It is moving slowly, rhythmically, eternally. You step into the water, and it feels like silk. You are floating. You are drifting. You are gone. The night is a vast, open space, and you are free to wander through it. There are no clocks here, and no machines. There is only the soft, silver light of the moon and the gentle whisper of the wind in the reeds. You are safe. You are warm. You are tired. The journey of the mouse and the human is over, and they are both sleeping now, curled up together in the heart of the night. Sleep well, traveler of the centuries. The story is done. The rest is yours. As the world outside fades into a distant, unimportant blur, you feel the final layers of tension dissolve from your mind. Your thoughts are no longer sentences or facts. They are just colors and shapes, floating like autumn leaves on a quiet pond. The rhythmic pulse of the modern world has slowed to match the ancient beat of the earth itself. You are sinking, not into a depth of fear, but into a depth of comfort so profound it feels like returning to a home you forgot you had. The sheets around you are like a cocoon, shielding you from the noise of the future and the echoes of the past. You are here, in the present, and the present is silent. The soft moonlight through the window traces a path across your floor, a silver road that leads nowhere and everywhere. You follow it with your mind, moving further and further away from the waking world. You are a shadow among shadows, a breath among breaths. The quirky remedies and historical debates are like dry leaves being blown away by a gentle breeze. They are gone, leaving only the bare, beautiful branches of the night. You are ready to dream, to let your soul wander through the landscapes you have visited tonight, seeing them not as a student of history, but as a guest of the dark. The silence is absolute. It is a thick, velvet silence that fills your ears and calms your heart. You feel a final, deep sigh escape your lips, a sound that is lost in the quiet of the room. You are no longer waiting for sleep. You have become it. You are the darkness, the stillness, and the peace. The story of the raw mouse has reached its final page, and the book is being closed with a gentle, loving hand. There is nothing left to do but drift. Your breathing is now so slow and shallow that it is barely a ripple in the air. You are a stone at the bottom of a clear, dark lake. The surface of the water is perfectly still, reflecting the stars that have watched over you since the Nile. You are safe. You are cared for. You are resting. The modern world with its lights and its noise has finally retreated, leaving you in the sanctuary of your own being. You are the master of this silence. You are the guardian of this peace. The final image in your mind is that of a small silver mouse sitting on the edge of your bed. It doesn't move, it doesn't squeak. It just watches over you with bright, kind eyes. It is the spirit of all the remedies, the essence of all the nights. It is a symbol of the quiet persistence of life. You reach out to it in your heart, and it disappears into a puff of silver dust, settling over you like a blessing. You are covered in the stardust of history, protected by the wisdom of the ages. You are going now. You are almost there. Now, the world is just a soft, steady hum, like the sound of the universe spinning on its axis. You are part of that hum, a quiet note in a grand, eternal song. The morning will come, the sun will rise, and the world will start its noise again, but that is a lifetime away. For now, there is only the dark, and the dark is a beautiful, generous friend. It has given you everything you need. It has given you the silence. It has given you the rest. It has given you the dream. The world is moving slower now, the minutes stretching into long, luxurious shadows that wrap around your room like a soft silk ribbon. You can feel the heartbeat of the house, a gentle, rhythmic vibration that tells you everything is safe and everything is still. The heavy blankets are a sanctuary, a warm fortress where the worries of the day cannot find you. Your mind is like a quiet garden at midnight, where the flowers have closed their petals and the birds are silent in the trees. You are drifting on a sea of velvet and stardust, floating further and further away from the shore of the waking world. The lights are out, the sounds are gone, and the only thing left is the peaceful, steady rhythm of your own heart. You are a masterpiece of relaxation, a quiet ripple in the great, dark ocean of the night. There is no rush, no deadline, no noise. There is only the deep, wonderful calm that you have earned. You are falling into a dream that is as vast and beautiful as the sky itself. Let go of the last thread of thought, and let the darkness hold you, soft and warm. You are safe. You are home. You are asleep.